Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome on in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen. Your camera's a bit low there, though. You can, those of you watching on YouTube, you can see myself, Jason Walker, and Eric Frandsen in all of our glory. We welcome you on in. Those of you listening on 106.9 FM and 1390 AM, our traditional home, and the home we will always have. But we're also on video now, so go check us out, either The Fan KLGN on YouTube or, as always, on The Fan over the radio waves. Or if you're listening on our podcast feed, kind of the middle section, we've got the old, the medium, and the new.
Apps streaming on the website.
Yeah, 106.9 The Fan. Yeah, 106.9 The Fan mobile app, 106.9thefan.com. So I think that's 5 different ways you can listen to us. 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, the mobile app, the website, and YouTube.
YouTube and podcasts.
There's 6. Yeah. 5 ways to listen live. 2 different ways to listen.
You can't escape us.
Yeah, you can't escape us. So we're glad to have you on. We've got a lot to get over today. Utah State men's basketball taking on New Mexico. Rumors of Kansas State going after Jerrod Calhoun. We're going to have Adrian Denny of the Utah Mammoth Radio Network on with us to talk about the Mammoth and their recent trade and their playoff push. Other Mountain West games, you want a rooting guide, who to root for, games tonight and tomorrow in games not involving Utah State. We'll also talk about the Utah Jazz, who beat Washington and ended their losing streak behind 32 points from rookie Ace Bailey. That's all coming up on today's show and more. But let's start with the big one, the de facto Mountain West Championship game between Utah State and New Mexico. It's de facto and also kind of not, because Utah State has already clinched a share of the Mountain West title, as we talked about yesterday, where it's just kind of a really weird series of days where you have your worst game of the season and probably your most embarrassing loss. Not probably, it was your most embarrassing loss.
Yeah.
Somehow even worse than losing a home to UNLV was losing like that on the road. But then the next day you become Mountain West champions. So the Aggies have that in their back pocket, but something that the players were texting around, Zach Keller kind of mentioned this in their media availability today, things that the Utah State players were texting around, they're saying, we don't like to share. And so they don't want to share the title.
Yeah, when I teach my young kids, we have the common phrase, sharing is caring.
Not this
They've
time.
They've outgrown that now. As they're teenagers and adults, and so we don't use that phrase so much.
Yeah, they're old
unless I want a piece of whatever they're eating, and I will remind them. Remember that lesson I taught you as a child?
Well, that's not sharing is caring. That is the dad tax. You go from sharing to taxation. It's the levels of teaching your kids about what life is like.
This is what you have to give me for allowing you to live. Yes,
this is what you have to look forward to in life. People just taking stuff from you because they can.
Yes.
So if you want to join the show via the Young Power Sports Logan text line, you can do so. Text 435-339-0321. You can check out that text line. It's written on the YouTube overlay. So if you're watching YouTube, you can text in any time. You don't have to remember phone numbers like it's the 1990s or early 2000s.
Or hope you hear it right.
Yeah. 9315 saying it's called Stealing is Dealing, Eric.
Oh, stealing is dealing. I like that.
And 7241 saying shares are for squares. So
just win the whole thing outright. Yeah, you don't leave any question. Lock it up. Like Utah State's been in a position to lock this up for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Just get this thing done. Roll into the conference tournament like definitive. We are number one. Everybody's gunning for us. Everybody else should be intimidated because we're number one. I don't know if that really works, but
yeah.
And through the selection committee and any other pundits out there, there is no question Utah State is the top team in the Mountain West Conference going into the conference tournament.
Yeah, you got to go out there and prove it once again, though.
Yes.
6543, just to clear the deck on the text line, a little bit off topic, not too much though. Saying 6543 saying bad timing to start playing like this since NIL has gotten more entrenched. It seems like playing for pride has got pushed aside. To me, it seems like playing for money for college players motivates them less since they are paid win or lose. Do you guys know if this NIL money is paid to them like a contract for the season or game to game? I guess the theory of buying a winning season with lots of NIL should work, but look what's happening to the Cougars. Maybe we play them in round one. Yeah, as far as I know, it's usually monthly type thing.
Yeah, it's in installments. I know that there were certain things with football. I don't know how to speak to it for basketball, but I know for football, it was there was a certain amount that was given right up front, right away, but then there was other portions of it that were given as certain benchmarks kind of passed along, not like playing time or number of statistics, but just to ensure that players actually stuck with it. You don't get all of your money all up front. When you complete your full cycle, complete the season and all these other things, then you get that money that was allegedly allocated to you, but it's not all up front. And then, you know what? If players are, if we're paying players, and that's what's happening, right? Players are getting paid. But this notion that they're getting lax because they're getting paid whether they play hard or not, I don't buy that. Because anybody at a mid-major school, not only are they playing for their contracts they're trying to get now, the evidence is clear that if you play well, bigger programs will take a look at you and take a run at you and offer you a whole lot more money.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised how few players are actually getting paid at Utah State.
Yeah.
At the moment,
it's not like a bunch of Aggies are rolling around in dough and getting lazy because they know they got the check coming in. That's really not the case.
A couple more texts. They keep coming in, so we got to keep going to them. One thing, 6391 saying, the first year or so after I started listening to the show, I could never catch the number, so couldn't text in. I have the number saved now.
There you go.
That's the big thing.
Yes. Put it in your phone.
So here we go. For those of you who want the number, I'll say it in a couple of seconds here. 1, 2, 3. Okay. 435-339-0321. Because I am just like 6391. Like, I honestly, when I first started doing the show, I couldn't remember the number, and I was saying it on the show. Like, to be honest, I don't even know if I have it saved in my phone. I might somewhere, but I think I've actually texted into the show once.
Have you? I have.
I think when I was like traveling or something, like I texted in to say something because I was listening when like you and Ajay were on.
I text into the show all the time, even when we're on here together.
Yeah, well, usually you just text me. No, got some burners. 4781 saying portions of NIL also get handed out based off community involvement too, at least for basketball. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, I know that was the case for football as well. When you would do certain amounts of reach certain number of hours of community involvement and things like that, then that's how the collective would justify your compensation. It's not necessarily things done as an athlete on the court or on the field, but things done in the community. That's how you got your compensation. That's how they kind of skirted. That's how a lot of these collectives skirt around the rules a little bit. But it's pay for play.
Yeah, it's just pay for play. 9315 saying there is a half a dozen New Mexico fans that are being obnoxious on the social media, so I hope we kick their butts tomorrow. We, as in Utah State basketball players and coaches, all I can do is be a super fan.
They need you as a super fan,
if you're a fan,
it's spring break this next week. So, like, there aren't as many students. Like, they are concerned. Like, they've turned over some of the tickets and seats in the traditional seating area for the herd, and they're making those available to the general public because some students have left and they're not on campus this weekend. So there are more tickets available if you want to go, and they need a good, strong crowd. This is a big game, as we've talked about. So fans, you play a role, absolutely.
Yeah, New Mexico, very capable opponent. 4781 saying 1,500 of those student seats are now available. So get them while they
gobble those up.
Get them while they last. And
those are good seats.
Yeah, and let's transition into talking about New Mexico. We'll get back to the text line if you guys want to keep sending in your thoughts. We'll get back to them a little bit later, but 2444 saying, wonder if Dayton Albury regrets his decision to leave, especially if the Lobos miss the tournament. Well, I'll tell you what, I think the number I heard, well, I didn't hear a specific number, but I think I heard he tripled his NIL by going to New Mexico, and he's had a good season. Now, if his goal was to make the tournament and win a Mountain West championship, well, to be honest, he still has a chance at two of those things.
Yeah.
I'm sure he liked to hear Utah State, I'll say this. But I think he saw more opportunity at New Mexico, and he's largely gotten it. I think Jake Hall is taking a bit more of a role because I think Dayton Albury was supposed to be like the leading scorer, the guy, but he is the third leading scorer.
Yeah.
Still one of their key players.
Yeah, Jake Hall has definitely moved ahead of Albury the way he's been playing, and deservedly so.
Yeah, Hall and
he's a gamer.
Yeah, Jake Hall and Tomislav Buljan, those are their top two players. Statistically, they're going to be on the all-conference team. I'm filling out my all-conference ballot and haven't submitted it yet. But my tentative one has both Hall and Buljan within one of those all-conference teams. But Dayton Albury, I mean, of course, he's playing about slightly more and has a bit more usage than he was getting with Utah State. So, there are aspects where I'm sure, especially if he doesn't end up winning the Mountain West title, if he doesn't go to the NCAA tournament, there may be a pang of regret where, hey, I could have been part of a team that was better, but I don't think he's had any reason to significantly regret his decision to go to New Mexico because he's gotten most of what he went there for. One, there was more money, but again, I think there was more to it than just money. The opportunity was there as well. And heck, even in a loss, he had a pretty good game against Colorado State where I think he had 22 points and he was aggressive. Of course, when you just let him go free, like he can be a really dangerous player.
He's very fast.
Yeah, he's very fast.
If you let him get downhill, if you let him pick up steam, good luck trying to slow him down or stop him.
Yeah, the trick is you've got to be able to just contest. You just got to wall up and contest, which, interesting, that's kind of what they pretty much did against Dayton Albury in the first game because there are games where he will just go off. Like he had 21 at Fresno State. He had 22 in the game against Colorado State. He can get into the double digits, but when he played the Aggies and, his, I don't know if you want to call it a revenge game, but he went 3 of 10 from the field. He went to the free throw line a couple of times. He got some rebounds, but they basically let him drive into the lane at full speed and just run into whoever was there. Just go straight up. Let him get out of control. It's the thing that I like to say do to people when they're out of control. Instead of trying to draw a charge, just wall up. Dayton Albury, frankly, gets out of control when he gets into the paint.
Yeah, he's fast. He can get downhill, but he's not a great finisher. And that was his problem last year. But that was his challenge last year. And it really hasn't changed a whole lot this year. And so he's a guy that likes to play, 65 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And just goes fast, all gas, no brakes. But sometimes he gets into a position where he gets out of position. He's too tight with what's going on in the paint. He can't finish very well. Doesn't know how to get out of it very well. So he has some limitations like that. But yeah, you still have to guard him, right?
Yeah,
and I think you're right. Just provide an obstacle for him, and that's usually about all you need to do.
Yeah, and in some games he's still going to hit those shots, and that's where he can be dangerous because he hit all 7 of his 2-pointers that he attempted. Some of them were heavily contested, going up against Colorado State, and he was able to make them. And 2444 texting in talking about Dayton Albury. So I could be wrong, but it seemed like he played better last season. I don't know how much the New Mexico system fits his playing style, though he still would have to compete with Allen and Perryman for playing time. He'd be getting playing time over Perryman if he were still here. But yeah, he would basically be splitting. It'd be the same as what they were doing with him and Drake Allen last season. They would be splitting it pretty evenly. He'd be playing between 20 and 25 minutes a game, depending on who has the hot hand. And I think he's been pretty much the same player. Like when I watch him, it's like, yep, that's Dayton Albury. Like he plays exactly the same as when he did at Utah State, just in higher volumes. He played 19 minutes per game with Utah State. He's playing 25 minutes per game at New Mexico. His efficiency numbers are down, but they were actually remarkably high when he was with Utah State. And those remarkably high efficiencies were largely due to playing a decreased role where he saw less attention. He didn't take a whole lot of 3-pointers. He just took wide open 3-pointers, so he shot 43%, but he attempted 1 per game. So he's shooting 34% this year, but on more volume. He's shooting just under 50%, which is actually still pretty darn good for a point guard, especially one who's taking most of his shots inside the arc. So I don't know if you can say he's playing remarkably different, but I also have only watched, I think, 4 or 5 New Mexico games this season. at least significant portions of 4 or 5 New Mexico games. So I can't give a full grade on Dayton Albury's season beyond some impressions and just look at the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, certainly he's going to be motivated to play well. He's familiar with the gym. It's not going to be intimidating to him. He'd be very familiar with it. A lot of these other New Mexico players have never been here before. But and certainly he's somebody to watch out for. But the guys to really pay attention to defensively, Jake Hall and Tomislav Buljan. Those are the guys. Like, Dayton Albury could have a good game, but Jake Hall and Tomislav Buljan can beat you. They can win the game for New Mexico. I'm not so certain that Dayton Albury can win a game for New Mexico, but Jake Hall and Tomislav Buljan absolutely can.
Yeah, Albury could win the game in the same way that, like, Elijah Perryman, Carson Templin,
Colby King.
Colby King would win a game for you.
Yeah.
That's the kind of...
I don't mean to understate like his value and importance on their team, but
players number 1 and 2 on your defensive scouting report are Jake Hall and Buljan.
Right.
And Utah State did a really good job against both of those guys. Now, Buljan ended up with 17 points and 7 rebounds. He went to the free throw line 14 times, yet it was probably the quietest 17 and 7 with 14 free throw attempts that I maybe ever saw. Where Utah State was not dominated in the paint in the way that I was kind of thinking they would be with a guy like Buljan, where you look at his last 2 games, like where I've watched, I watched the Colorado State game. I actually missed the San Diego State New Mexico game because I was taking a nap or something. Big mistake on my part. But he's got 30 rebounds over the last 2 games.
He's a double-double machine.
Yeah, he's got back-to-back double-doubles. He had, 24 and 18 against San Diego State. Mm-hmm. Then it was, 18 and 12 or something like that. I forget the exact numbers, but it was 18 rebounds against the Aztecs, 12 against Colorado State. He can be a rebounding machine. The Aggies need to keep him off the offensive glass. If he grabs 12 defensive rebounds, I guess. You're not too worried about a guy just racking up defensive rebounds, except for the potential implications it has about your shooting percentage. But you want to keep him off the offensive glass. I think of his 30 rebounds, 14 of them are on the offensive glass. So roughly half of his rebounds are on the offensive glass. That's where he can do a lot of damage. He is really dangerous in that when New Mexico is able to get downhill with its guards, they're drawing the bigs on help defense, and then it's either a dump-off pass to Buljan or Luke, how do you say his last name? Haupt. I'm never sure if I'm supposed to pronounce the P there, but you can dump it off to him or Antonio Chol, or they're getting an offensive rebound and a putback. I see that over and over again when I watch New Mexico, and you see their bigs dominate the game that way. So Utah State did a fantastic job of not allowing that to happen against New Mexico in the first game. They out-rebounded them. I think it was like 36-28, according to Basketball Reference, which sometimes they understate rebounds. I've seen discrepancies between theirs and some of the official numbers. But Utah State controlled the boards. They controlled the paint. They didn't let Albury finish inside. They mostly didn't let Buljan finish inside. They fouled him a lot. But, again, he was their leading scorer at 17 points. Didn't have this massive impact. Jake Hall, who's normally hitting like 3-4 3-pointers a game, he hit 2, and I think both of them were in the first half. And then I don't think he hit a 3-pointer in the entire second half, which is where Utah State was really pulling away. So Utah State did, in my opinion, a fantastic job of limiting those 2 players. Sure, they put up some stats that combined for 27 points, but they were not a major impact on the game. They got some of their numbers, but they didn't let them take over. And that's going to be another key in this one. It's typically how you need to treat stars. They're going to get their own stats, but you need to keep them from being high-impact players.
Was the last time that these 2 teams faced each other, did Zach Keller roll his ankle early in that one? I'm trying to remember. Because he only played 6 minutes. And I'm trying to remember if that's when he...
I think that was, because then, the Aggies,
we were like, oh my gosh, what are they going to do with the size disadvantage? And it didn't matter.
Yeah, when they were also having some of their guys got into foul trouble, partly because they kept fouling Buljan, and we weren't sure. By the end of the second half, it was mostly, who are they going to put in? Because they're up by 20, and they got to have somebody finish the game. But yeah, I think Zach Keller's probably he's obviously going to play a little bit more. And I think he can potentially have an impact with Bullion. One, keeping him out of the paint on defense. Don't have him be the size in there to do some rim protection. He's not a big shot blocker, but you have a guy of that size that's going to potentially cause some problems. And then he's big enough to, go up against Bullion and not be bullied in the paint defensively. And so that'll be a big key there. So yeah, I think the Aggies, if the first matchup is any indication of how the Aggies seem to match up as a team, there's a good sign that they should be able to handle all of the problems that New Mexico can present. Because being a good team, they have a lot of ways to beat you. But unlike with Utah State when they go up against UNLV, where they just, at times when they've gone against San Diego State and Nevada, there are some issues where they've been good or not been good. I think they can match up pretty well with New Mexico's weapons. But we will see. We've only seen one game, one example of that. There is a case in Utah State history where they had a blowout win on the road and then lost at home, which we'll get into that a little bit. We've got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to hear from head coach Jerrod Calhoun. He spoke with media earlier today, just a couple of hours ago, talking about this game and, yes, also addressing some rumors about his potential employment coming up. So we will play that audio for you guys. We'll also get to your texts. We got a few more texts rolling in, and then we'll talk a little bit about, Utah State winning the game on the road by 20 points should mean something. You'd think they'd maybe do even better at home, where we talked about how poorly they've played on the road. So we'll get into that dynamic as well, and some history of how Utah State has done when they blow out teams on the road and how the home series ends up. So all that coming up later this hour here on the Full Court Press. Welcome back in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen. As we're continuing the show, we've got Adrian Denny coming on the show a little bit later. He'll be joining us to talk about the Utah Mammoth. And we'll also give you the routing guide for Mountain West games taking place tonight. San Diego State hosting UNLV. And then games like Colorado State, Boise State. There's some games where I don't have a routing guide because it doesn't really matter that much.
It doesn't matter.
But there are a few games we'll talk about exactly who we think you should be rooting for. We'll also talk Utah Jazz, USU Gymnastics, their senior night tonight, hosting Oregon State in the D. Glenn Smith Spectrum. The Mountain West champion, Utah State Aggies, taking on future conference opponent, Oregon State.
Yeah, and this isn't a topic for today. Maybe sometime in the future when we're not so stacked with topics, but apparently, things are pretty rough up in Corvallis, Oregon.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of pitchforks are out for Scott Barnes.
Yeah, they're not
the
happy.
General manager.
They're not happy with Scott Barnes.
Left. There was a big controversy about a deal that they made with something for NIL, and it flopped. And their coach just got fired, their basketball coach. So, yeah, it's they're really underwater financially.
Yeah. Well, anyway, let's hear from head coach Jerrod Calhoun, where things are going a little bit better for him.
Yes.
Maybe not specifically the last game, but named Mountain West champions after Colorado State beating New Mexico the other day. But here is Jerrod Calhoun from the media availability we had a couple of hours ago now as he met with us and answered our questions. So let's get that here.
Just thoughts on being named Mountain West champions, kind of like in the middle of the night after you guys have lost. Just kind of feel weird to have that kind of, not so great game, but then kind of achieving one of your guys' season goals.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just really, puts things in perspective. You can't overreact to a couple games, but at the same time, we're trying to capture our momentum back, but you also can't forget your body of work throughout a whole season. Every game matters. So really, really proud. Third ever in 13 years. Hard to do in this setting. With the number of turnover, Jason, from year to year, having them, mixed players and the different things, just really, really proud of this group. I thought their personalities really fit and great leadership by the guys, but certainly far from over, but three, in 13 years to be part of that is pretty special.
Did you watch the game start to finish on Wednesday?
No, I couldn't watch that. No, I watched it the next morning. My kids and wife watched it, and I watched like the last 2 minutes. I did send Ali. I sent Ali edible arrangement at Colorado State. He and I have become very close, and his team's playing really well. So we appreciated his efforts, but. You turn the page, right? You have a chance, tomorrow at 2:00 to win an outright championship, which has been only one of those in the Mountain West in Coach Sprinkle's group. So trying to get the momentum back, trying to get playing better. Last game with these seniors in this building, all five have, just contributed in so many ways, not just in basketball, but academically in the community, being part of a team. They've all really, really fit really nicely. They all have different paths, different stories of how they got to Utah State. And I think that's the neat thing about coaching. When you each year you got to try to bring in some different players and see what fits. And these kids have been awesome.
You mentioned that group a couple of years ago, obviously. They clinched the Mountain West title against New Mexico, obviously, with Darius Brown. Josh, is there any conversation about that game or watching that?
Mason and KT were here. The other 13 players, I'm sure they've seen the highlights or heard about it. Not really. Really haven't, talked anything about that. Really just worried about ourselves, trying to play better on both ends, trying to execute better, trying to, really just get momentum back.
Last game against New Mexico obviously went really well, and Zach Keller, you mentioned you guys had a really good game plan, executed that really well. Just what were those things that you guys did really well to help you get a 20-point win?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, it was tail of two halves. First half was great. We played really well the last 14 minutes of the game. When our team captures momentum, we get deflections, we get steals. We're pretty good. We have to get back to, really owning possessions on the defensive end, which will then lead to good offense. So we need to have a high deflection game. We need to FITFO, figure things out throughout the possession. We need to problem solve better and just have better activity overall in the defensive end.
This team is not real deep per se, mainly 8 guys, but these guys are pretty solid.
Great team. I mean, there's a reason they're playing for a regular season championship. Jerrod Calhoun is one of the best coaches in the country. Great respect for him. I think they've got the 3 best freshmen on one team in the country. I don't think there's another team in the country that can say that. 3 kids that, Tenette and Hall and Boudian, they're all great players. They're really, really good. Great point guard in Dayton Albury. I think they got probably the best glue guy in college basketball. The kid's phenomenal. He cuts, he guards, he can flip his hips and post you up. Very, very intelligent player. And then they've got shot makers. If you look at some of those other guys, they can really shoot the basketball. So they've got a good mix.
You mentioned Logan, obviously he's had a really strong couple of games. You guys have struggled against some size recently. Just what do you think you can do to kind of limit him?
Yeah, I mean, just you got to get him off of his spots, right? He's really good around the basket. So you've got to be physical with him. You've got to do an incredible job, of making things hard for him. He's really good. He's powerful, best rebounder in the conference. So he's good at getting his own shots. You got to hold him to one shot, and you got to know where he is at all times when the shot goes up.
You guys have had some, you're playing a lot worse on the road as opposed to home. Playing better at home is not a novel concept, but been kind of a drastic difference on the road versus at home. So what have you seen from the team, kind of inability at times to perform as well?
Yeah, I mean, we were right there at Nevada. We were up, we were up 4, I think, with 3:15 to go. We missed some free throws, missed some easy ones. Obviously, San Diego State didn't play well, and then the last game didn't play well. So I think it's a combination of, when the ball doesn't go in, continue to fight through it, figure out what the game needs, and just, have better awareness on deterring passes, our deflections. I go back to that. We've got to do a better job with, getting our hands up on passes and making things difficult. When teams can run good offense and get to their spots, we're not disruptive. Any defense is going to break down. So hopefully at 2:00, we get back to that.
Talk a little bit about MJ's season and where he's at now compared to earlier in the year. Obviously, the scoring's come off, but he's still doing well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a remarkable story. I mean, it's a guy that averaged 8 points a game last year, right? And I think, it's a lot of the portal gets a bad rap. I think fans and a lot of different people crush the portal. I think we've had guys the last 2 years that I would say the total opposite. I think they absolutely love the portal. So each player is different. In MJ's case, we needed another wing player to score the basketball, to add to our perimeter defense, to be able to move laterally, to score the ball. I think it was a perfect fit for him. Obviously, teams are zeroing in on him. So him and Mason, they've got to continue to read the game, right? Whether it's reading a closeout, their off-ball cutting, rebounding the ball, creating opportunities for themselves. But his story is incredible. I think it's one of the best of the entire country for a young man to play 20 minutes and only average 8 points a game and come here and potentially be a first-team All-League player. It worked out pretty good.
The seniors should honor them after the game?
Yeah, we've always done that. I just think it's it's a big day. Obviously, it's a exciting day for them and their families, but at the same time, it's a sad day. As a coach, you only get to coach some of these guys for 8, 9, 10 months, whatever it is. But we just want to do everything after. The game will end. We'll do our senior night, and then we always do a post family gathering, family celebration after the game. We'll do that over in the Estes. We do about 5 of those a year for the families, and it's going to be good to see all the families in town.
They're playing for like a kind of recognition of winning the Mountain West Championship before usually bring the trophy out.
I don't think so before. No.
Last couple of games, a trend has kind of emerged early in the game offensively. shooting a lot of threes with San Diego State, Grand Canyon, UNLV, 7 or 8 of the first 10 shots on threes. Against San Diego State, UNLV, not a lot going in. Is that concerning?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a valid question. I think you got to take what the defense gives you, and then you got to know if you've missed 1 or 2 in a row, maybe 3 in a row. You've got to get the ball to the paint. If you look at our percentages around the basket, there's a reason we have a top 30 offense in the country. The reason it dropped, we didn't make those threes, or it'd be top 20 in the country, and that's over really, a couple years now. So. You got to know time and score. You got to know what's good to great, and continue to put pressure on the paint.
So earlier today, Jeff Goodman said you're one of the top 3 candidates for the Kansas State job. They reached out to you.
Jeff Goodman and all these guys. I call this, silly season time. Jason, the only thing I'm focused on is a 2:00 game tomorrow, winning the outright championship. I've said all along, Cam Walker, Ike, Carter, this new regime has been really, really good. I think we're in a really good place heading into the Pac-12. I think anytime you have success, there's going to be people that are going to call you, they're going to inquire. I think that goes for our players, to be honest with you. So I think the least amount of distractions, that's why I don't look at my phone. I don't have social media. I don't know what they're reporting. But I'm worried about New Mexico, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's Jerrod Calhoun from his media availability earlier today, talking largely about the upcoming game against New Mexico. But of course, I don't know. I never like asking questions like that because I knew what answer I was going to get. He pretty much answered the question I exactly expected, exactly the way I thought he would. But I do also have a responsibility as a sports reporter, journalist, whatever you want to call my position here. I don't know if I consider myself a capital J or even a lowercase j journalist, but
there's a lot of times where in media we feel like we need to ask the question even though we know the answer.
Yeah. But
just so the question and the response can be on the record.
Yeah. It's the kind of thing where you got to do it.
You still have to ask the question.
Yeah. You got to ask the question even if you know what's coming, because otherwise it's really hard to look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and be like, what am I even doing?
And no one should be surprised that Jerrod Calhoun's name is going to be on top of a lot of lists for available coaching positions. Pitt, Kansas State, Providence was another one that I heard just the other day.
I heard a Syracuse beat writer the other day saying Jerrod Calhoun should be on their list. So it's like, if you're a power conference team, you've got Jerrod Calhoun on the list somewhere.
Why wouldn't you take a look at him?
Yeah.
I mean, we all want him to stay.
Yep.
But it should come to no surprise to anybody that Jerrod Calhoun's name is going to be on some lists.
Yeah.
And that just speaks to the success that he's had here and the successful program that Utah State has built.
Yeah, I can pretty confidently say, not that I have a source on this, but I'm pretty confident in saying that I don't think that rumor came from Jerrod Calhoun expressing interest. It seems very clear that Jeff Goodman, who made that report, is very much just getting that list from Kansas State.
The other thing, too, is I like how he pointed out the leadership structure that's in place now. If the leadership structure that was in place a year ago was still in place today, I don't think he would give much thought. I think he would jump pretty quick. But there is a different leadership. There's a different attitude. There's a different plan forward for Utah State athletics and as an institution overall. And it's a lot more grounded right now, and it's moving in a much healthier direction.
Yeah, and working on getting resources and salary and all those different kind of things. Like that's something that's going to be very important to a coach, because they all realize now that having resources is more important than just getting paid a lot. Because if you want to have a job longer than 2 years, you got to have the resources to work with.
Right.
So we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll keep on this topic with Utah State facing New Mexico. Also, any texts, any thoughts you guys have about these latest rumors of Utah State losing their head coach. We'll get to those as well here on the Full Court Press. Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen. And a reminder that the Best of Northern Utah contest is back, presented by Alpine Cleaning and Restoration. Nominate your favorite businesses, the places you love, the people you trust. Eric, you got a point here?
Well, nomination phase ended on Wednesday.
Oh, did it? Oh, well, you should have told me before I read this whole thing
that
off.
should be updated. Voting will start this next Wednesday. So all the nominations are in, and a business only needs to be nominated once. You don't need to nominate a business multiple times. Like if they're good, you get nominated, you be on the list. And then everybody who was nominated, everybody in their categories, to separate this from other contests that might be out there, everybody who's nominated, you get to see who they are starting on Wednesday this next week, and then you get to vote. And you can vote multiple times, vote across multiple categories. And that's where it's decided who is the best.
You can vote for any business once per day.
Yeah.
Like as many businesses, one each per day.
Correct.
So make sure to vote as
So
many times
watch for that.
your
Just
favorite
keep your
businesses.
eye on bestofnorthernutah.com, and certainly we'll be talking about it too.
Yeah, we'll keep bringing it up here. Interesting thing that I was looking at, Eric, because Utah State, they beat New Mexico on the road by 20. We've had this whole dialogue. I even asked Coach Calhoun about it, if you could understand the questions during the audio. Sometimes it can be hard. I asked him about, it was kind of a convoluted question too. I started rambling a bit, but just like I am now. But it was about Utah State's performance. Like it's drastically worse on the road. Playing well at home versus the road, that is not a novel concept. Teams tend to play better home, but it's like drastic with Utah State. Net rating swings as high as minus 60 when they go on the road multiple times. Most of them a negative 20 net rating swing. But Utah State played really well at New Mexico. 20-point win. And I went and looked it up. I said, how many times has Utah State beaten a team on the road by 20-plus points? How did the home game go in that series?
Well, the one that jumps out to me, I know you've got the data, but one that certainly jumps out to me is Boise State. Utah State.
Yeah, and that happened this year.
It blew up the Broncos in Boise, and the return trip was about the same.
Yeah, and that has largely played out with Utah State in the Mountain West era. This is as far back as I went. I started compiling this for like all of the Mountain West teams, and then I realized I don't have time for this. So I got through a bunch of them, and in the vast majority of cases, I think I ran into two instances in like the history of the Mountain West. Mind you, I only got through about half the games or half the series. Like Air Force one time lost after winning on the road by 20 plus. I think it was UNLV. This was like back in like the early 2000s though. But Utah State in the Mountain West era, when they beat a team on the road by at least 20, they're 8-1 in home games that they played that same season against that team. Sometimes they didn't always have a return trip. Sometimes you play them only once. There's also the COVID year.
So I'm clear. When they blow out a team by 20 or more on the first meeting,
no, it's only
8-1 in the return trip.
It's only in reference to the road game. So in some of these cases, they actually played the home game first.
Okay.
But if they blew them out by 20 on the road, how did they do in the home game comparing? Now, for instance, actually the one time they lost, that was a case in which they beat Nevada on the road by 29. This was back in 2021, Ryan Odom's first year, when they went to the NIT. They won by 29 at Nevada, just completely wrecked them. Nevada comes to the Spectrum and wins, I have written down, 85-72. So they won by double digits in the Spectrum after losing by 29 in their own venue. So that was kind of interesting. But generally speaking, if Utah State has or eventually did beat a team by 20 plus on the road, it was a very good indication that they will at least win and probably win comfortably. You mentioned this year with the Boise game. While it was technically worse, it is hard to beat a team by like 27 plus twice in a row, especially a team as good as Boise. And for a team like New Mexico, expecting another 20-point win, like it's hard to beat a team like New Mexico by 20 points. Colorado State was doing it, and then, turns out New Mexico's good, so they started to rally a bit. But again, that was at their own home venue. So for the Aggies, again, unless they pull something like they did against Nevada in that previous game, back in the Ryan Odom days, of course that team was heavily dependent on 3-pointers, and they shot really poorly from 3 in that game. Nevada shot really well from 3. Unless New Mexico just has this complete outlier game, you have to be pretty confident that the Aggies aren't going to have such a drastic swing from being capable of beating New Mexico by 20 in the pit to suddenly losing at home on the Spectrum. Like, I don't think there's going to be this enormous shift, because that's what it would have to be.
Yeah, I think New Mexico is going to try to give Utah State their best shot.
Oh, they definitely will.
But this is also a New Mexico team that in conference play, Utah State's the only team that was able to beat them by double digits. They have a 1-point loss. They've got a 7-point loss, an 8-point loss, and a 9-point loss, and a 4-point loss. Besides the one outlier, which was Utah State, that blew them out by 20.
Yeah.
So something about how Utah State matches up against New Mexico bodes very well for the Aggies. But they have to bring that same energy and that same mentality that got them that big win on the road in a very hostile environment.
Yeah, I think out of every game this season, as far as like how impressed I was at the energy and overall effort, that game has to rank among the highest of all.
Oh,
the
absolutely.
only one that really compares is how Utah State played, at least defensively and on the glass, the way they did against San Diego State. Offense, not quite as much, but like for quality,
Total complete game.
yeah, for complete game,
Yes,
New Mexico
that's the
really
one.
has to take the cake. The only one that comes close was that 40+ point win against Colorado State, but that one was at home and against a team that ended up going nearly 500 in conference play.
Their beat down of Boise in Boise.
Oh, that's true. That one
That was
also
a great
pretty
one
good
as well. But at the time, Boise just wasn't. I mean, they were treading water. They
were really
if not,
they were
like,
going through it.
sinking. But New Mexico at the time was still a very solid basketball team.
Yeah.
Who had a great venue. With
Except they've now lost like 4 times at home.
Yeah, but the game at Boise had the big controversy with the traveling fans and Spectrum on wheels. Didn't have that same friendly road environment in New Mexico.
We got to take a break. When we come back, we'll get to some more of these texts. Continue on this topic. We will have Adrian Denny on at the top of next hour talking Utah Mammoth. But we'll talk, outside of that, where we have that hard scheduled. We can talk about this Utah State versus New Mexico game. We'll also get into other Mountain West games as well during the show. But we'll be back after this here on the Full Court Press. Batteries, headlights, wiper blades, and more are all in stock and on sale now at your local Napa Auto Parts. Get air fresheners, snow scrapers, shop towels, seafoam, and more. Again, so much on sale at your locally owned Napa Auto Parts store. They got locations from Preston all the way down to Providence. Now, let's see how many of these texts we can get through. If we don't get through all of them, we will be flowing over into the second hour. Of course, we will have Adrian Denny on. At the start of the hour, we'll pause this discussion of the Utah State New Mexico game to talk Utah Mammoth and their big trade and what's going on with their franchise. 6211, the important question here. If the Aggies and Lobos end up tied for the Mountain West Championship, I've heard that New Mexico will get the number 1 seed in the tournament. Can you explain how that tiebreaker works? The answer is yes. And the reason that it works out like that is that, so for instance, if New Mexico beats Utah State, and say San Diego State beats UNLV as they are favored to do, that would actually be a 3-way tie at the top of the Mountain West standings. Though, even if San Diego State isn't part of that tie, then New Mexico would still have the number 1 seed. So say there's a 3-way tie. Basically, everyone compares each other's record to each other. But in that case, I think everybody's split against everybody else. So everybody is collectively 2-2 against each other. Because that's where they try and break a 3-way tie is say, okay, what's your record against each other? And as soon as they find a differential, they break it down to a 2-way tiebreaker and they go from there.
Yeah.
But in this case, everyone's tied, and then it ends up going down the list of tiebreakers to how did you do against the number 4 team? Because, and if everyone had the same record against the number 4 team, they would go down to the number 5 team and so on and so forth until they find some differential. As it turns out, New Mexico, so the number 4 team in this scenario, if most of this plays out, it's going to be Grand Canyon. I think, and Grand Canyon plays Air Force. So assuming they don't lose, then Grand Canyon's going to be the number 4 team. And New Mexico, they swept Grand Canyon. Utah State went 1-1. San Diego State went 0-2. And coincidentally enough, that same record against Grand Canyon is also what keeps Utah State above San Diego State. So for a bunch of complicated reasons, basically it's everyone's record against Grand Canyon ends up being the linchpin. And New Mexico went 2-0, Utah State 1-1, San Diego State 0-2. So that separates everyone 1, 2, and 3 in the seeding, even though they'd all be tied at 14-6, and all of them would get a Mountain West Championship trophy. And if San Diego State loses to UNLV tonight, it would still play out the same. San Diego State would fall to 4 for a bunch of tiebreaker reasons, but New Mexico would end up as the number 1 seed anyway. That's going to do it for us here in the first hour. We'll be back after this. Welcome back into the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan. Streaming online at 1069thefan.com, on the 1069 The Fan mobile app, and live on YouTube. Welcome to all those who may be listening, however you may be listening, or even watching. We've been talking a lot of Utah State men's basketball as they prepare for New Mexico on Saturday, even amid some rumors about their head coach, which just always seem to be running around anyway. That's just the inescapable.
It's that time of year.
It's the inescapable fact. But we've got some really positive news involving movement, although of players, and that comes from the Utah Mammoth. And we welcome on Adrian Denny, the on-air radio host for Utah Mammoth on SEG Media, as we're glad to have you on, Adrian. How you doing?
Hey, Jason and Eric. How's it going, boys? Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's going
Always
pretty
a
good.
pleasure to talk to Adrian about Utah Mammoth.
Yeah, always love to have you on.
Because you make us sound smart because we don't know what we're talking about. And so we have you on so you can fill us in on the details.
That's not true. Hockey's a simple game, guys. Just have a little confidence.
Yeah, well, it's easy for me to watch. Like I've gotten the hang of watching. Of course, I started out my sports career as a student writer, like covering hockey, so I learned the ropes a bit there. But it's usually a lot of this behind the scenes stuff, the tactics, talking about how good of a second line you have and, backup goalie. And it's like, my experience is most games I've played with a goalie, you only ever play one of them in most of the time. So all this stuff with hockey can kind of escape me. But let's start with where the Mammoth are now. We wanted to ask about the trade they just made, and the trade deadline just passed today, a few hours ago. But let's talk about kind of where the Mammoth are. Their push for the playoffs. Every time I've checked, they've been kind of right around that playoff line. Lately, I think the last few times I've checked, they've been just inside of that. But just kind of update us where the Mammoth are and the likelihood of them being able to make the playoffs for their first time in franchise history.
I think they feel pretty good about it right now, and they've done a great job since the first of the year of just kind of pulling everything together. They won 2 of 3 on that trip to the East Coast, came back, had the 6-0-1 homestand, finished a 6-game homestand over the weekend here that kept them in Utah for over a month, including the Olympic break. And, they haven't been perfect, but no team in the NHL is perfect, right? It's all about the grand scope of segments of games. And so the Mammoth lose at home to Chicago 4-0, tough game on Sunday, but they rebounded on Tuesday and they beat Washington 3-2. They shut out Philly last night. And so they've been an imperfect team, but they've been really, really good at their 5-game, their 10-game, their 15-game segments since the first of the year. They're 8-2 after a loss going back to mid-December. So that's been the biggest thing is when they have the setbacks, they're able to quickly get the train back on the tracks. And they made a huge trade on Wednesday, acquiring a veteran defenseman from the Calgary Flames and Mackenzie Weegar and some draft capital that Utah had really stocked up, and there was a prospect that Calgary wanted that was a third rounder from 2023 that really was going to have a long way to get through the system to play in the NHL for Utah. And Olli Maatta, a bronze medalist from Finland, a great part of the inaugural season, great part of this year, really saved the year. Last year, acquired from Detroit when the Mammoth were just thin on D with some injuries in the first month of NHL hockey in Utah. So Olli Maatta goes to Calgary. He'll be playing every game there and be a big part of their team. But Utah's bringing in a defenseman who can do everything. He blocks shots. He hits guys. He can move the puck. He can create offense, but he's really good defensively too. So with that and just the last 2 months here of the Mammoth getting into the spot and getting into the position that we've been expecting throughout this second year here in Utah here, it's good to be able to add that player like Mackenzie Weegar. And guess what? The NHL trade deadline passed today at 1 p.m. and General Manager Bill Armstrong was on the phone with his team in the last 36 hours of that after they finalized the Weegar deal, seeing if anything's out there. And they've got so much in their prospect system and so many draft picks they've stocked up over the years. They could have acquired anybody that they wanted that was on the market. So that was the good thing. And there were some high prices out there that Bill was referencing. And, we've really put a lot of work into the scouting and development team, identifying, drafting, and developing some players in our pipeline that right now are untouchable. And there wasn't a deal to be had for the Mammoth to add anything more for this year. But I think it's a great thing, because when I look at those deals, my first question is, are you parting ways with a prospect that is going to have more of an impact on your organization in the big picture than some guy you're bringing in as a rental on a 5-year deal? Like, you're looking at, okay, we got a 6th overall pick, we got a 4th overall pick, we've got a pick in the 20s that could have been drafted in the top 10, like Kobo Dwayne. Parting ways with a guy like that, or Dmitry Simishev, who was also taken 6th overall, and Daniil Booth drafted 12th overall. You're like, yeah, we could get better now, but is this really our championship window? And do we want to mortgage the future with the guys that we've put so much effort and energy into identifying, drafting, and developing, to bring in somebody that is going to help now, but we like what we have now? And if it helps us get from game 6 of a series to game 7, if we're not winning a Stanley Cup, what's the difference, right? There's no point. So a disciplined approach from the Mammoth and Bill Armstrong, and boy, did they love pulling the trigger on the Uyghur deal on Wednesday. So
let me ask you specifically about Uyghur. They add another defensive player, and did you feel like is that the missing piece to help Utah secure their path to the playoffs? Or could they have gone maybe, were there other options potentially out there to help them? Is, if I remember correctly, on some of the broadcasts that I've heard, there have been some of the challenges with this team is in face-offs and power play situations when they haven't been able to press their advantage quite as much. But is he the right guy to help them kind of get over that hump?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing going into this deadline was, what can you add to the group that you've got to just kind of supplement what you've got going on right now, because there's a lot of good things. And you talk about the power play, and all of a sudden going into the Olympics, the power play kind of hit a switch at kind of their scared straight moment of going 3 for their last 33. Like, oh gosh, our coaches have a plan here. We need to execute this, or we're going to be in some trouble. And now they've got 7 power play goals in the last 7 games. They get Alexander Kerfoot back from injury. They get Logan Cooley back from injury. So those are 2 centermen coming back in the face-off dot that are like 2 trade deadline acquisitions just coming back to the roster from injuries. And so the Mammoth are in a position right now where 6 of the 12 forwards on the ice for them are natural centermen. So that has drastically helped the face-off dot that you were mentioning. So for me, it was, what can you bring in to add to the team and make them better? Not necessarily shopping for something, because I think you're in a spot, whether you did nothing or added a Mackenzie Uyghur, you like where you're at going into the playoffs. But now that you have him, you're like, okay, this is great. He's going to help really in every single thing that we're doing out there. Power play, penalty kill, defensively hitting guys, blocking shots, and really most importantly, honestly, with Mackenzie Uyghur, it's just another great human to have in your locker room that's going to fit in and be part of the culture and just the fabric of the organization. He's in year 3 of an 8-year contract, so he's got 5 years left after this season.
So when you look at this acquisition of Uyghur, this is one of the things that kind of got to be explained to me, because I don't always know the landscape of the league. But on a scale of like 1 to 10, with 10 being, you acquired the best player ever in hockey, to 1, this is just another roster spot. What kind of level is the acquisition of Uyghur for this roster?
He's an elite level player. It's his 10th season in the NHL. He was part of a big deal that Florida and Calgary made a couple summers ago, and they brought Matthew Tkachuk over from Calgary down to South Florida, and they went to the Stanley Cup final the first year, and then they've won 2 Stanley Cups in a row. So he's really the biggest part of that. So to get that player, they had to part ways with something that they didn't want to give up in Mackenzie Weegar. And now Calgary is in a situation that they haven't had a good year. And you look at some Canadian teams and some of the decisions that they make to try and win now, and it doesn't always work. And so Calgary's having a down year, and they've got, contracts that they're looking to unload while they look to try and get younger and acquire prospects and assets to kind of start that rebuild, a retool, a refurbish. And so for the Mammoth out there being buyers, if he comes on the market, that's like, okay, we can add this and we can probably get him for something that doesn't mortgage anything in the future. Or if they would have gone out and made a trade in the last 36 hours after getting Weegar, that would have compromised making that second deal.
I want to ask this. This one actually comes from our text line asking that now the trade deadline has come and gone, what do you think about the Mammoth not trading away any of their own expiring contracts?
Yeah, I don't think you're too worried about it. I think you're in a position here with the Mammoth that you can get whatever you want, right? You're going to be negotiating with your free agents, but I think you're confident with your salary cap space that you're going to be able to give everybody a fair offer to return. So and if you lose a guy to free agency, that's showbiz. That's why you've got the pipeline that you've got. There's guys in junior hockey right now and in the AHL right now that we want in the NHL next year and in years to come. So it's just part of the business, and it sounds callous, but whether you're re-signing your own free agents, making trades, going out on July 1st and luring free agents here, I think you're 100% comfortable in every situation that you have, and you realize from year to year there's going to be an expiring contract or two that might go elsewhere, and it's going to be beneficial for both parties for a player to go play elsewhere, get more time, more minutes in the Mammoth to hit that button to bring in a top prospect who's going to be a star.
Talking to Adrian Denny, he is the studio host for the radio broadcasts of Utah Mammoth, which are heard here on The Fan. And Adrian, I wanted to ask you about the goalie situation for the Mammoth. Vejmelka has been in goal for a lot of games, and it always kind of feels like this team needs a good secondary option. Vanacek seems to be emerging as that guy. Had a great game last night, pitching a shutout in the game at Philadelphia. When you talk about his growth and his development.
Yeah, he was great, and he's really been in some tough spots this year. First of all, as the backup goalie, you're playing on the second game of a back-to-back when you have a goalie like Karel Vejmelka who's playing every single night. So he's gone out on some back-to-backs where the team just didn't have a lot in the tank, and they're playing another really good team. So that was kind of November and December when Utah had all those road games and all those back-to-backs. And then to go along with that, there's been games where he's been great, and the Mammoth have gotten him nothing. He played a 1-0 game in Colorado right before Christmas where every analytical, category had the Mammoth winning the game 5-1 except the actual scoreboard. And he played great. And Vejmelka, now that the back-to-backs kind of tapered off, you're at home playing every other day. It's Vejmelka's crease to play in. But going into the last 6 weeks of the year, it's why they went out and got Vitek Vanacek, just like Florida did last year. They acquired him at the trade deadline from San Jose at the very last second when they thought they had their situation with their backup goaltender solidified. They traded their backup goaltender to Chicago. They called up a veteran from the American Hockey League, the minor leagues, their affiliate in Charlotte. And they're like, okay, Chris Drieger's our backup. And then Vanacek became available. They went out and got him. And he's number one, great in the locker room. But he's had some really good years in the NHL. He won 32 games in New Jersey. Florida called upon him to be the backup for their second Stanley Cup run. He played about half the games in the last 6 weeks last year after being acquired, as they kind of got Sergei Bobrovsky rested and ready to go. And the Mammoth went with VTech last night in Philly, the 3-0 win. He gets the shutout, and there was really no concern. Even in a game, Utah played without their best defenseman, Mikhail Sergachev, who's day-to-day with a lower body injury. They were still waiting for Uyghur, of course, to arrive with the team to get his immigration rubber stamped. But no doubt going with Vanacek and giving Vejmelka a night off. So, it just every little bit helps when you have a night that you can give Veggie 60 minutes without having to face a lot of shots, even though the Mammoth only gave up 16 last night. But Vitek Vanacek made some huge saves last night. Talking to several people, I said on the air, the quality saves he made, probably the same amount of quality saves that he would have to make if he saw 35 shots. Philly, their chances last night were good ones.
You mentioned Uyghur, having to deal with some paperwork to get the transfer, fully and the trade fully done to be able to play here in Utah. What's the timeline look for him to be able to play, not just in, getting to Utah and all the logistics there, but also getting up to speed with the team and being able to play on the ice and be able to play with these guys?
Yeah, so the tricky thing, he's a Canadian player that was playing for a Canadian team. And so getting traded to a team in the U.S., just like every, person that comes on a work visa or from another country to work in the U.S., you have to have your immigration approved before you can go on the ice, before you can be put on the payroll. You got to have a social security number, et cetera, which he does because he's played in Florida, but he doesn't have active immigration. So that's about a 4 to 8 day process to get that expedited. The good news was the trade was done on Wednesday, so the Mammoth could file immigration on Wednesday. If it would have been done at the trade deadline today, it's 2 hours before the end of business on the East Coast, and nobody's going to be looking at that petition over at Customs and Immigration until Monday morning at the earliest. So they did get a big jump on that by getting the deal done Wednesday versus today, when it would have carried into the weekend without anybody really looking at it until Monday because the government's closed on weekends.
Hey, Adrian, let me ask you, we haven't been able to speak since the Olympics. I think we spoke before the Olympics, but there were a number of these guys on this Utah Mammoth roster who played for their home countries. And what have you had conversations with them since they've returned, and what kind of experience was that for them, and are they any different players now after having had that experience?
Well, first of all, Clayton Keller coming back and getting the gold medal is been on a whirlwind tour of North America since coming back from Italy. Miami, the White House coming back, playing games for the Mammoth, heading back out to the East Coast. And I haven't carried his medal, but I understand it's pretty heavy. And we just saw Hillary Knight over at the Mammoth Ice Center a couple hours ago, who won gold with the U.S. women, and she had the gold medal that she had won, and was talking about how heavy it was. But yeah, experience of a lifetime for Clayton Keller and the U.S. men and Hillary Knight and the U.S. women to come back and really be the stars of the country, right, from the Olympics. So he's the second leading scorer among Olympians since we started back up after the Olympic break. Matt Boldy of Minnesota is the other. So definitely not any kind of Olympic lag for Clayton Keller with coming back after that whirlwind over at the Olympics. JJ Peterka said, playing for Team Germany, he learned a lot. He picked up a lot from guys like Leon Draisaitl, who are stars in the NHL, and Karel Vejmelka didn't play in goal, but he was there, and for him it was just the dream of a lifetime to represent Czechia at the Olympics. And then of course Olli Maatta was there playing. He hadn't played for the Mammoth since December, but he was playing every game for Finland and helped them capture the bronze medal. And for him, that was the second bronze medal that he had won. And he was one of about a dozen NHL players who were participating in the Olympics for the second time after playing in 2014, the last time NHLers were over there.
And it was a really special Olympic run, at least for the Americans. I know the Canadians weren't super happy about it by the end. But Adrian, wanted to at least, I have one more question here. Just as we look at the Mammoth, what are the biggest keys for them heading down the stretch as we get closer to the playoffs, we get closer to the Stanley Cup and those playoffs? Just what are the keys for them to get into that playoff and have a good showing? I know they're not going to be Stanley Cup contenders unless they really surprise us, but what are the biggest keys for them?
I think just keep doing what you're doing. You're in that first wild card spot right now. The chance of getting any higher with the 3 Central Division teams above you in Colorado, Dallas, and Minnesota is probably not a great probability, but they're in the spot that 3-4 teams below the playoff line want. So they just got to maintain it. And for them, that might be pressure for the first time to hold on to a playoff spot. But the way they've played to start this trip, just defensively, they haven't allowed a 5-on-5 goal in the first 2 games. They've got the power play going, and you're seeing the body of work come together. It's a brand of hockey that's going to be successful in the playoffs and really give them a chance to make the biggest run possible here in the first year. But it's just simple. It's just keep doing what you're doing. And when you don't have a perfect night, see if you can still win the game. And if you don't, forget about it, move on, and come back the next night because you know what you can do and you know what happens when you're rolling.
Adrian, always a pleasure to have you on the show. We love listening to your broadcasts. You help set the stage before every game, and then you're kind of helping us understand what happened between the periods as well as we get to carry those games here on the Fan. And really, folks should listen because you never know. There could be a Northern Utah reference dropped in there every now and then because it was Angie's Restaurant just the other night.
Yeah, we love the Cache Valley. We love the Spectrum. Mike Folta, our play-by-play announcer, calls it the Spec, which I hadn't heard until Mike moved to Utah, but works for me. And we love our hikes up Logan Canyon in the summer and all our time at the Eccles Ice Center when we have a chance to get up there with the Mammoth.
Yeah, if you can make it on, they're playing 2 p.m. tomorrow. Is there a Mammoth game tomorrow?
Yes, they play Columbus.
Okay, I guess you won't have time for
He's
it then.
Be busy.
There's only one more game in the Spec this year, so. But I guess we can catch you some other time. Problem is, there's too much overlap between hockey season and college basketball.
There is, but there's always a 9 p.m. FS1 game against UNLV or CSU that works out for us to get up to.
Yeah, that's usually one. But then it's a hard drive back. That's the biggest thing.
True.
If you don't live in the Valley, that drive back can be brutal. But anyway.
I always have Mike drive, and he hasn't figured it out yet.
Adrian, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to your next broadcast here on The Fan.
Thanks, Eric and Jason. Have a great night. Talk to you soon.
All right. We're going to go ahead and go to break. We'll be back after this here on the Full Court Press. Welcome on back in to the Full Court Press. Reminder, the indoor air in our area can be up to 5 times dirtier than outdoor air, especially during dry winter months. Dry air keeps dust and allergens floating longer, sending them deeper into your lungs and making sickness more likely. Mountain Valley Heating and Air installs high-efficiency steam humidifiers that use 1 gallon of water with no waste to improve air quality. Call 435-753-5170 for a free in-home air quality assessment from Mountain Valley Heating and Air. That's 435-753-5170.
Couple quick things, Jason, before we move to a next topic or before we clear the deck on the text line.
First, we got to say thanks to Adrian Denny.
Yes.
For coming on.
He's great. Always accommodating when we reach out to him without a lot of notice. Yeah. I looked, I saw that they didn't have a game. Figured he probably should be available, but just because you don't have a game doesn't mean you don't have other things to fill your time. But he was always accommodating.
Yeah, well, it was great because like you said you're going to reach out to him. I went to the bathroom, and as I came back and walked by your office, like, Adrian's good. I was like, well, dang, that was fast.
Yeah, he was quick. He was Johnny on the spot. A couple things have happened here recently, just within the last hour. One is that Utah State opened up more tickets because not all the students claimed what was available to them because this next week is spring break, so a lot of students are going to be gone. So Utah State has created more seats available to the general public for Saturday afternoon's game against New Mexico. Cam Walker took to social media to declare that the game has been sold out. So if you waited, man, you lost out. But if you jumped on it, way to go. The game is sold out on Saturday. If you want to go, you got to find something on the secondary market, and good luck with that. Another big note here recently, just again within the last hour, story we've kind of been following from a distance, but Utah Valley has had some wranglings with the WAC. Yeah. Legal battles back and forth that could limit their opportunity to compete in the postseason or even appear on their national broadcasts. Utah Valley, was it last night or earlier this week, just the other day, they won the regular season.
Yep.
They are the
WAC it was last night.
Regular season champions, and they won again today. A court has granted a preliminary injunction which allows them to continue to be eligible to participate in postseason play representing the WAC. And so they will be able to participate in their conference tournament this next week. And if they qualify, the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. You can suck at WAC.
Yeah, it's good for them. And then one other quick note. Maybe not so much winning here. We feel bad about this one. Preston Indians, great program in Preston. A boys basketball team.
They're having a fantastic year this year.
They've had a fantastic decade.
That's true.
They made it to the semifinal game against Bishop Kelly. They were down by 8 going into the fourth quarter, rallied, got it to overtime, but ended up losing 63-60 in the semifinals of the 5A basketball tournament up in Nampa. So we feel bad about the Preston Indians. They gave it a great run. This is one of the few times they have not been in the championship game after a great season. But Preston was a number 2 team coming into this, and unfortunately lose by 3 in overtime.
I'm struggling to find the right word. The horror of the playoffs. That's probably not the craziness of the playoffs, the chaos where you can be one of the best teams. Of course, they lost to a good team.
Yeah.
It's not like Belmont getting blown out by the 9 seed in their tournament.
That's true.
But yeah, it's the way playoffs are. You can be the best team over a regular season, but the playoffs are what they are. It's kind of the nature of the beast. Let's get to the back to the text line, the Young Power Sports Logan text line. I've had a lot of texts we've been kind of sitting on as they came in while we were talking about Utah State, their game against New Mexico. Also some rumors about Jerrod Calhoun and interest from Kansas State in employing Jerrod Calhoun as their head coach. But if you want to chime in on any of these topics, text 435-339-0321. 9315 texting in saying, if us fans are flipping out over K-State and other rumors about the basketball head coach, they're not smart. Need to learn USU and its basketball program will be just fine. I feel like fans are actually taking the news right on the chin. Like, all right, like there's many that just don't think it's going to happen, but even if it does, At this point, Utah State fans are seasoned veterans.
Right.
Like
as often as this has happened,
they're like,
okay,
they're like a bunch of grizzled
Here we go
sailors
again.
just staring at a tsunami coming at the ship, being like, "Oh, it's Tuesday, I guess."
yep, done this before.
Yeah, they know what to do. Batten down the hatches, all that. They know that Utah State is more than a head coach, and oftentimes the head coaches lack success after leaving Utah State. Well, Ryan Odom's done all right with Virginia, but he was actually smart about the way he left.
True.
Not just taking the first job that popped up. 8968 saying, I've heard we were just focused on the next game as they are headed out the door many times before. That was what Jerrod Calhoun was talking about when I asked him about it. I was like, focused on the next game, which is a bit of a non-answer.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the way it is.
Trying to get the team motivated. And look, there's a lot on the line for this one. Win it outright, be the number one team, improve your standing for the NCAA tournament. It's a much better situation if you're the number one seed in the bracket in Las Vegas this next week. So there's a lot of reasons to play motivated for Utah State.
Yeah. 9-1-5, also making sure I read this one. Don't feed into the Aggie rumor mill that Eric Texan all the time with the burner number 9-1-5. Be one of the burners. So is 9-1-5 your burner or Aggie's?
Maybe that's Aggie's burner number. I don't know.
5860 saying Utah State is more likely to lose its head coach every 1 to 3 years than Steph Curry is to hit a three. Yeah, that's the sad thing. Is statistically that is kind of true.
Those odds are high.
5662 saying unless Ohio State or Cincinnati come calling with the bag 4 to 5 times more than Calhoun's yearly salary and want to pay the $4 million buyout, I feel okay about Calhoun staying the year. He could bring a lot of his roster next year. He likes the new athletic regime heading into the pack. He knows the support he has at USU. That being said, that doesn't mean anything. We as Aggie fans know that this song and dance all too well. It's going to happen if we like it or not. We just reload it like we have the last 3 times. Let's enjoy the win tomorrow and the outright title. See how the season finishes out, then we see what happens.
Amen. I totally agree with that last part.
Yeah, definitely.
And there was some thought that Cincinnati, that their coaching situation was tenuous. And I thought if any availability, if any spot became available, that one would be enticing because that gets him close to home. But they've won some games here recently, so that coach may have saved his job.
Yeah, because you look at the last head coaches to leave. Well, Craig Smith going to Utah was a little bit of an outlier, but Danny Sprinkle goes to Washington where he has connections.
Yep.
Ryan Odom goes to VCU back east where he has got a lot more family and connections.
In the state of Virginia, where he's got deep roots.
So I know Craig Smith kind of went to a random program, which was just kind of weird, but I don't know if Calhoun's going to jump for the first job that opens up. I'd be a little bit surprised at that. 2444 with the text, and Eric, you went and did some research on this.
Yes,
because I wasn't 100% sure where the line was here, but they're asking, what odds do you give MJ Collins to finish this season as a top 10 single season scorer in USU basketball history?
Yeah, so the numbers on this. Currently, MJ has 519 points that he has scored on the year. Mason Falsliv, by comparison, 479. But you look at single season points, Wayne Estes leads everybody, 821.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's touching that one for a while.
Dude was a baller. But then you go down the list. I mean, this is a who's who of Utah State basketball on this list. But at number 10 is Greg Grant. So, as mentioned, MJ Collins is currently at 519. Number 10 is Greg Grant, who has 632. So,
so that's 113 points. What's his current average? Is like 17.3,
if he plays 4 more games.
So he's averaging about, I think, 17 a game right now. I put in 17.3. That's like 6 or 7 games.
Yeah, he'd really have to pour it on over this next week,
you're looking at
weeks.
Your more optimistic projections are going to have him playing 6 more games. And that is 1 more guaranteed regular season. You really only have probably 3 guaranteed games. If you're guaranteeing the Aggies in the NCAA tournament, that's regular season finale. You have 1 guaranteed game in the Mountain West tournament, and then 1 game in the NCAA tournament, which is kind of pseudo guaranteed at this point.
Yeah, and then you could add 2 more if they play all the way to the championship game, and if they do well in the first round,
then maybe
it gets you there.
That's a 6th game.
Yeah, so Is it possible? Yeah. It's going to be hard.
It's always possible.
It's going to be hard to get there, but it's possible.
It takes a lot. You got to average like 20 points a game, essentially.
Yeah.
Which he was at one point, but no longer.
Yeah.
Going further down the text line, 5305, first-time texter. Thanks for texting in to the Full Court Press. So in the last couple of years, the Aggies have fallen apart at the end of the season. What have they shown you in the last 3 games for you to believe they're going to beat the Lobos easily? Mainly in that they've played much better at home, and all of their horrible losses have been on the road. Not to say that the Aggies are immortal and immovable and impossible to beat at home. UNLV's done that. But I think when you look at how well Utah State played and seemed to match up, because again, this comes down to matchups a lot more. It's the playing well at home and then the matchups. Now, we only have a 1-game sample size to be certain about the matchups. We made assumptions about the Aggies matching up well against the Broncos and matching up poorly against the Rebels. Those turned out to be more substantiated, though only after we watched the second game. So there is an air of uncertainty. But I've gotten a similar feeling to how the Aggies match up against the Broncos to how they seem to match up against New Mexico. Now, maybe things change a little bit. But again, when you beat a team by 20 on the road, that takes a monumental shift. Now, have we seen that monumental shift? The Aggies got blown out by like 30 against UNLV, got blown out by 17 against San Diego State. If you argue that that is the team that Utah State is, even when they're playing at home, because those games were on the road, and they've been a materially worse team on the road this year than at home, like if that's the version of the Aggies that plays against New Mexico, yeah, they lose the game. But I'm pretty confident that that's not the team that's going to show up on Saturday. And most of the better end of the Aggie teams, when they're playing at home, like, again, as long as they're not just kind of sucking it up and don't have any focus, I think a Utah State team playing at home should be able to beat this Lobos team. Because as good as the Lobos are, they have shown plenty of times that they can be vulnerable. And I think the Aggies can exploit some of those things.
Yeah, and I think the what happened last year and what is happening this year, those are concerning trends.
Yeah.
Calhoun collapse, hashtag.
Yeah, you can't completely pass off the 1-3 last 4 games.
Yeah. But there is a big difference.
Yeah,
the games that they lost last year were not really against the top teams. The games that they've lost this year, like their end of season schedule this year, much more challenging than it was last year. Last year's team, when you watched some of those games at the end of the season, you saw a team that was gassed. They were hanging on by the skin of their teeth, even games that they won. This year's team doesn't really look gassed. Sometimes they look out of place or out of position, and sometimes some guys lack focus. But I don't see a team that's out of gas. Last year, that was a team that was out of gas. This team is deeper. They're more versatile. Yes, they've lost some games. That's a concern, but I don't see some of the things that I saw last year. So I still like their chances, especially since this is a home game, as you said. The difference between how this team plays at home versus on the road is stark. And the fact that they beat this team on the road like they did, that's also a big number. Saturday's not going to be the same outcome.
Yeah.
I really don't think.
I don't think
this is going to be a repeat of Boise State.
I don't think they're going to win by more than, like, I'd imagine, unless things just go tremendously well again, you're going to max out at a 10 or 11 point victory.
Yeah, I really see this as probably closer to like 7.
Yeah.
7's kind of my number, that the Utah State, if they play right and they do things like they should, they can win this game, but it's going to be a lot closer.
Yeah, because the 20-point win was when everything was going well, and not everything is going well. But I think they're going to go well enough that the Aggies can get that win.
Yeah, Alan Elamine has to kind of fight his way out of his stupor.
Yeah.
Because if he plays well, which he did last time,
he had a
double-double.
Yeah, double-double, goes 11 points, 10 rebounds, which was a huge reason why the Aggies were able to win that game the way they did.
Yep.
One last text before we jump to the break. 2104 saying, what are you guys' thoughts and feelings with Calhoun's comments? We've heard it before, and then the coach still leaves. Do you feel he'll still be there next year? And yeah, it was very much a bargain bin coach speak type of statement in response to that. The kind that every coach who has been asked that question and eventually left has often given a similar answer. And if you're pessimistic and want a reason to kind of feed into that pessimism, or even if you're trying to be a realist, like it can still be adding up. I don't want to say that the only people that think he's leaving are pessimists and doomers, because there is a logical through line. We've seen this song and dance before, as other texters have noted. At this point, I honestly just have to say I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I like some of the things that he said, but at the same time,
it was a stock answer. Like,
if he has
the words were all nice, but it was a stock answer.
Right. Yeah. If he has an opportunity to get a big bag and have the resources that he wants, who wouldn't take a job? Who wouldn't look at that opportunity? Now, Utah State has positioned itself a lot better. They've raised salaries. They've held events to raise money for recruitment and retention. Like, they've done a lot more in this last year to keep this team and make the team's future better than they had in the past. They've got a better AD that's more connected and knows what he's doing. They've got a university president that likes athletics. They've got a good staff. So the community has, they're setting records or tying records with sellouts. Like, the community is invested here. And so there are a lot of things that are going Utah State's favor. Doesn't necessarily mean he's guaranteed to come back. But there are a lot of things that are hitting in the right direction for him to stay.
Yeah, and if it's not going to help Calhoun, it'll support the next coach.
Right. And if he leaves,
$4 million.
Nobody should feel like this is all for naught. It's like, okay, you know what? This is a great place for coaches. And look at the coaches that have come here and the success that they've had. You're not going to have some bum who's going to try to get a job here. There's going to be high-profile candidates that want this job because they know the community, they know the success, and they know the opportunity they have ahead of them.
Yeah. We got to take a break. When we come back, we got a few more texts. We'll also get into the rooting guide for tonight and tomorrow. The teams you should be rooting for the best possible situation for the Aggies in the Mountain West Tournament. That's coming up next here on the Full Court Press. Cache Valley's largest and most complete power sports service shop is now open at Young Power Sports Logan. They service all brands, all makes, all sizes, motorcycles, ATVs, UTVs, and more. No guesswork, no shortcuts, just trained technicians who fix it right the first time. Yeah, pickup and delivery. It's available within a 25-mile radius. They can handle anything Can-Am, Kawasaki, Polaris, Ski-Doo, in and out, done right, guaranteed. Schedule your service now at 755-7111. That's Young Power Sports, Logan Service Department, 755-7111. I want to rush through these texts really quick here. We've got a couple of these before we get into our routing guide for the Mountain West today and tomorrow. 2444 saying Utah State could benefit from VCU winning at Dayton tonight to remain a quad one win. I don't see them being a legitimate at-large contender regardless, but if they can end the season top 50 in the net, that would be big.
Currently, VCU is 45. So, yes, any wins for VCU help Utah State. Actually, New Mexico played VCU as well. So
yeah.
Multiple Mountain West teams rooting for the Rams, VCU Rams.
Yeah. 9-5 saying last year people dismissed coach and what he said the same things last year, but he stayed right here. So that led me to believe that he is sincere and wants to stay just like last year.
That's true. Like he was on the coaching staff at West Virginia. He spent time there. He has fond memories of his time in West Virginia. And if Utah State was able to keep him in spite of that opportunity, I don't know that I really see like this golden ticket out there for him right now.
Yeah, not necessarily.
Yeah.
5338, it's a better late than never player of the week. Tyler Reddick, he has won all 3 NASCAR races to start the season so far.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty insane.
Is that Michael Jordan's driver?
It is actually. Yeah, that's there, and it's not even like one of the top teams.
Yeah, that's
in NASCAR.
Been kind of a crazy story.
Yeah, even one at
racing team,
one at Coda against like there's a guy who was on like a 6 like road course racing. I can't remember the guy's name, but he'd won like 6 straight of the road courses, and Reddick managed to beat that guy who ended up taking second. So pretty solid start for Reddick in the NASCAR series. Really quick, we've only got a couple minutes here. Routing guide for the last weekend of the Mountain West. There's essentially 3 games you should be rooting for one specific team if you're an Aggie fan. One of them is obvious. Root for Utah State over New Mexico. I don't know if that really needs to be said, but
I will say what I thought that this margin of victory would be for Utah State. I did not see what the lines were when I said that.
Oh, what did you say?
Now I said I would see Utah State by 7.
What's the line? 7.5.
The line is set at 7.5.
Yeah, Eric's lying. He definitely looked at that.
I swear.
So 2 other games to look at, and it depends on how scared you are of UNLV. If you're confident the Aggies will go beat UNLV in a 3rd matchup, then you're not really, actually, to be honest, then you probably aren't that concerned with these 2 other rooting. But if you want to avoid UNLV, root for San Diego State and Colorado State. Root for those. Although, funnily enough, if Utah State loses, then I think at that point you actually might start rooting for UNLV if you want to avoid them in the 2nd round. But Colorado
State,
too
late for that because they play tonight.
That's true. So you won't have anything there. But root for Colorado State over Boise State and Utah State over New Mexico. Those are the 2 key rooting. All the others, Grand Canyon, Fresno State, Nevada, Air Force. Oh, I misspoke. I said Grand Canyon plays Air Force early in the show. They play Fresno State. Nevada takes on Air Force, San Jose, Wyoming. The biggest key is root for Colorado State to beat the Broncos and the Aggies to beat the Lobos. And that's your rooting guide for this weekend in the Mountain West. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll have Pick 6. And if you have any time left over, we'll talk about the Utah Jazz as well. So that's next as we wrap up the show here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan, and live on YouTube. Welcome on back to the Full Court Press as we're set to wrap things up here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan, and streaming online at 1069thefan.com. And it's that time of the week, or technically it's a day late, but whatever. Better late than never, as one of our wise texters said last segment.
Close enough.
It's time for Pick Six.
I bet you $20 I can get you gambling before the end of the day. No way.
It's the Full Court Press Pick Six.
Ever since March Madness ended, I am so bored.
6 things we think will happen this weekend.
I don't know how the whole betting thing started, but it's fun.
All right, it's Pick Six. You pick 6 things, plus there's a tiebreaker extra point, the PAT, if you will.
Right.
I won last week, which means I get to pick who goes first. And Eric, I'll let you go first.
Okay. Let's go to the World Baseball Classic.
All right.
It's underway. Runs scored by USA versus Brazil. 6.5.
I'll take the under.
I'll take the over. Elijah Harkless for the Utah Jazz. Points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks when they play at Milwaukee, setting the line at 6.5.
I'll take the over.
I'm going to take the under. And then combined goals scored between the Utah Mammoth and Columbus Blue Jackets Saturday, setting at 4.5.
I'll take the over.
I'm going to take the under.
All right.
I think I'm going to regret that.
Maybe. I don't know. That was a really
I'm
good
going to
line.
stick with it. I'm going to stick with it.
All right. That was all 3 of yours?
Yep.
Okay. I couldn't count, so. All
I
right.
only have 3.
Mine are all Mountain West college basketball related.
Ooh, okay.
First, Draw Gibbs Lawhorn points tonight at San Diego State. Only had 10 points, but had been averaging 29.7 in the last 9. But how will he do against the Aztecs? Over under 21.5 points.
I will take the over.
I'm going to take the under. Dayton Albury field goal attempts against Utah State. Over under 8.5.
I will take the over.
All right. I'm going to take the over as well. Combined points for Mason Falslev and MJ Collins against New Mexico. Over under 32.5.
Ooh, that's good. 32.5. I'm going to take the under.
All right. I will take the over. And then you cheated to guess the line, the margin for Utah State, New Mexico. So I'll have my third line related to this game and just say, all right, straight up, Utah State by 7.5.
Well, I said 7 was what I had in mind, so I'm going to stick with that. So I'll take the under.
Under, all right. And that gives me the over. So I'll be rooting for the Aggies to cover on that one.
Yeah.
We'll see if there's another game-winning, another iconic shot. We've had one of those per year for the last couple of years.
That's true.
So,
we've had big shots. In Utah State season, I don't know if we've had like a big shot to close out a game this year.
We've not really had any games quite like that where, especially at least not at home anyway.
No.
They've all been much, I don't think we've had a one-possession game at home yet.
At home?
The Montana State. That was a 3-point game. The Aggies won.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one didn't require a big game-winning shot. So.
Yeah, most other games have been pretty healthy margins.
Yeah. 2444 sending this in, saying, speaking of record books earlier, Mason Falslev is now top 20 all-time in scoring after passing Preston Medlin. Wonder how high he may end up if he stays for another season. Well, he's at 1372. He can probably get into the 1400s. Give another 450-ish points. That would put him in the 1800s. He'd finish somewhere in the top 8 if he stays for another year, I'd guess. He'd be right around Marv Roberts, Cornell Green, who were all just short of 1900. If he really exploded as a scorer, like into the 18, 19 point per game, which I don't know. He's always, and I think will probably stay at a 14 to 15 point per game score. That seems to be kind of his comfort zone where he can go off for 25 or so, but like he's pretty consistently 14 to 18. That's kind of his
He's
own
not
niche.
a ball dominant scorer.
Yeah. And isn't quite really a 3-level score, which would kind of really unlock that 20 point per game type stuff. That and also having a dominant left hand, or at least a good left hand.
But he has, to his credit, he has worked on his shot.
He has.
His free throw shooting is far improved. His 3-point shooting is far improved. Like, he's got a better stroke. It's not weird, kind of, it floats to the right before he shoots it.
He's also got a really good, short range floater. That's something that's really expanded his game. That's helped him become harder to block at the rim, as he can pull up and shoot a 4-foot floater and hit it. And it's, that's a really hard shot to stop if you're a defender, and if you're a guard it's a difficult shot to learn. But once you've learned it and can hit it at a high rate, it becomes a really efficient shot. And Tony Parker made a living off hitting, those floaters.
And don't forget KVNU game day coverage starting Saturday at 1 with J.D. Walker, Jalen Moore, and Stockton Jukes to get you ready for a big showdown in the Spectrum with Utah State and New Mexico vying for the outright Mountain West Conference title, regular season title.
That's going to do it for us on today's show. Again, thank you so much for listening. Those of you who listen on air, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan. And those of you watching our live stream on YouTube, we'll be back on Monday as we recap the game against New Mexico and prepare for the Mountain West tournament. See you guys then.